Thank you, Rich. It was great keynote speech, great introduction to what is threat-informed defense. Um, Thank you for that. Congratulations to the people who are at the top of the leaderboard: Mark, Syria, David, Craig, Denise. Well done. We've got a lot of activity going on all over the exhibit hall and the booths and here in the auditorium. So I'm excited to have so many people participating and engaging. This is really a community effort, and I'm glad that we're able to facilitate this kind of thing. So, quick note on some new things. This morning, you might have missed it, but we had a live or a delivery straight from the MAD professors on adversary emulation, module 1. It's just the first module. There are more to come that gave us an introduction to what is adversary emulation and the benefits of it and when to employ it, how to employ it. But there will be many more to come over the next couple of months. And so, tune in to those. ATT&CK evals is also launching the evaluations for managed services. So the call for participation is open on that. Please go to the MITRE Ingenuity website, and you'll find a link there to express your interest in participating in those evaluations. So Rich gave us a great overview of what is threat-informed defense. I wanted to dive into that a bit and give us a structured way of thinking about the components of a threat-informed defense. And that's also going to be the structure of our talks today. So as Sun Tzu said long, long ago, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. And if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. And I think this is a very appropriate quote for what we're talking about today. We've had a lot of cybersecurity efforts over the years to know yourself, understand your own technologies, your network topologies, your users' behavior, making sure that your systems are patched and that you've locked down your systems and configurations as much as you can. And there's a lot in there that's very valuable about knowing yourself. And part of what the threat-informed defense is about is knowing your enemy, knowing the people who are coming after you, understanding what they're all about and what they're going to look like and what they're going to do, how they're going to behave in your network. And in addition to the lower level IOCs on David Bianco's Pyramid of Pain, which are often shared in threat sharing forums, ATT&CK really helps us understand at the higher behavioral level what adversaries really do and what they look like. And being based on real threat intel of actual events that have really occurred helps us to focus and prioritize our efforts on defending against those things. And we've seen that David Bianco's hypothesis that the TTPs would be the most difficult thing to change has really been proving true. And so investments that we make at that level of an understanding of our threat will really pay off because they're going to hold more constant over time and across actors. So we've been thinking about this, how can we break this down into components, threat-informed defense? And we think there are essentially 3 components of a good threat-informed defense. And up at the top there, because it's such a driving force, is cyber threat intelligence. This is, how we get this understanding of the threat in order to inform our defenses. And we've got a few speakers today who are going to talk to us about cyber threat intelligence and how to read narrative reporting and look at raw analysis and understand at a TTP level what that indicates adversaries are actually doing. And then how to apply that understanding of cyber threat intelligence at the TTP level to make actionable defensive recommendations and to share that level of cyber threat intelligence with others, and consume it and analyze it ourselves. And so that's really the pinnacle of this pyramid. It's up at the top because it's such a driver for everything else that we're doing. And it connects to these two other fundamental components of a threat-informed defense. So if we sort of go clockwise around this triangle, we get to the second corner, which is test and evaluation. And it's here that we would have things like a SOC assessment, a Security Operations Center assessment, or a tool evaluation using something like ATT&CK evals, or doing purple teaming with adversary emulation to better understand how our sensors, our analytics, how our tools, and how our defensive teams are postured to defend ourselves against the threats that we're seeing in that CTI. And so that CTI is really informing how we're doing that test and evaluation to make sure that we are basing that on what real actors are actually doing out there in the wild. And that test and evaluation really then puts us in a great position to understand the gaps that we need to fill and help us prioritize those gaps so that we can then implement effective defensive measures, which is the third corner of this triangle. So as we continue to go clockwise around the triangle, we see defensive measures. And this might be in the form of better architecture or better system design to make sure that whether it's an application or an operating system or an overall network is designed in such a way to prevent these threats from getting to us in the first place. Or it might be in the form of better detections. So understanding what data we should collect to detect those threats, how to analyze that data so that we can be alerted when those malicious activities are occurring without having too many false positives flooding us and making us ignore the true positives that are coming in. And having that deep understanding of threat intelligence coupled with an understanding of our gaps will help us design more efficient and effective detection measures. And then, as you've seen with the engage matrix, there are also other actions that we should be considering taking to engage with the adversaries. And that is not only leveraging cyber threat intelligence to understand who our adversaries are and what they will look like so that we can detect them and engage with them, but also to anticipate what they might do so that that engagement can persist. And whether that's a deception operation, maybe we need to provide them the environment with all of the things that we anticipate that they will be looking for, or some other responsive kind of engagement mechanism that should be driven by cyber threat intelligence. But it also comes full circle, and those detections and that engagement could both provide us with additional insights into what actors do. And so they can be drivers of and sources of cyber threat intelligence. And so each of these corners of the triangle really relate to each other and feed each other and drive each other in lots of different ways. And I've just touched on a few here sort of superficially. And there are lots of different components to each of these corners of the triangle. But together, we think that if we can mature all three of these corners, we are going to be able to, as a community, have a much more effective and efficient defense that's going to impose more cost on our adversaries, because we are focused up at that TTP level of behaviors where we know that it's more difficult and expensive for them to evade or react to defenses at that level. So, our vision is that between the Center for Threat Informed Defense and attack evals and MITRE Attack Defender, that we can advance the state of the art and the state of practice in each of these areas, provide some unbiased views on how different solutions fit into this space, and educate the broader community on the lessons that we're learning, what those best practices are, so that we can scale this up and we can all collaborate together. And of course, just as ATT&CK is really a community-driven repository of information, we want all of this to be community-driven. We don't have all of the 100% correct answers of exactly how to do this perfectly. We are offering up our best ideas, and we encourage you to engage with us through all of these different mechanisms so that we can do this as a community, because that's what we really need to do to succeed here. So our next session, really excited to introduce two of our MAD professors, Amy Robertson and Jackie Lasky. They've both been doing cyber threat intelligence work operationally, and they both worked on developing and refining and updating the cyber threat intelligence course from MITRE Attack Defender. They're going to walk us through in this next session their perspective on cyber threat intelligence and how to leverage it. They're going to give us an overview of what's covered in the MITRE Attack Defender course for CTI, but they're also going to add to that. So it's not just going to be a rehash of that course. They're going to give you some new information and elaborate on what they talked about in that course. So without further ado, here are Amy and Jackie with the next talk.